everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today I'll be sharing how I created this 3D teepee that was the kind of background to my Peter Pan mini album. This project was made for the Disney blog hop that Melissa and Sean were so wonderful to put together. This was the second Disney blog hop, and I understand the first one was a huge success, and I was so fortunate to be asked to participate in the second one, and I hope to be asked back again because I had so much fun. For those of you that are new followers and for my returning followers, this video tutorial will show you some information about how I created this project, and also hopefully offer you some tips and tricks for working with Cricut, working with cuttables, as that's a project I'm going to work with today. As you can see, this teepee is 3D and it's quite large, so I'm going to actually work with other pieces of paper when I position the camera, just for the sake of getting it all in frame. I'm going to try and not make you sick by shaking this too much right now, but mini album does fit inside the teepee, and if I just pull that out, we'll talk about that in a minute. As you can see, the part that I'm going to show you today is how I added this buffalo image that I stenciled onto the side. So we're going to talk about that, and also how I created the suede look for the teepee itself, and how I made that all with my Cricut. Okay, so to start us off, I want to just share with you some of the material that I used to create the teepee. While it may look like fabric or paper to some of you that are used to working with distress ink, it was not either of those two things. First of all, I happen to use my Gypsy just because I like to save the files, but you do not have to. And I use distress ink, which is what gave it that texture, old look, and you can use any color that you like. I happen to want to keep the color light, so I used old paper. Then I used poster board. So rather than white cardstock or fabric, what I used was a big giant, the school display type of poster board that's about 16 by 20, and I cut it down. So because obviously my project was quite large, we're going to work with a much smaller version of this. So I've just cut out, this one I just happened to cut out by hand, this triangle piece. And the main things are some refresher ink and distress ink pad. Now the refresher ink, this happens to be a Ranger product, and it's what you buy to kind of give your stamp pads a little bit more life. It says it rehydrates and conditions ink pad. What it has that I like for this project is it seems to have like an oily sort of film to it, and I don't know if that's the product that helps to moisten the pads, but that's what you want. It is an acid-free product. It's made by Julia Andrus, so it's safe to use in scrapbooking, and that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to grab my Gypsy real quick and just show you a couple of ways that you can create this. Now Gypsy here, you can see that I used my 12 by 24 mat, and I added 2 triangles. They can be triangles from anything. You can also freehand cut these if you don't have a cartridge with a triangle on it, but George and Plantain both have one. If you want to know the exact size, I made mine 11.3/8 in width and 10.90 in height. So what I basically did is just stretched it to a size that I thought I could work with, so that I could get 2 per mat. You're going to want to cut 3 triangles for this product out of the poster board. So you're going to, and you can make a smaller version if you want. But the first step that I take is to take my disc, and I'm just putting this on some background paper so that I don't get my desk surface messy. But I'm going to take my distress ink, and I'm just going to start stamping like crazy in a random pattern. Now if you want a color that shows up a little better, I suggest the walnut. Let me just grab that one. And you can actually even do 2 tones. Okay. You can add darker colors, you can add lighter colors, you can take Stampin' Up! Pad. I like the distress ink pads. Now I know that a lot of lines show up. Those will disappear when we complete the technique, so don't worry about those. You just want to get kind of a color that you like. Now I would do both sides at this point before I do the next step, but for time purposes I'm only going to do the one side. Okay, so once you get a look that you can live with, normally this stuff you could just spray on, but my little sprayer here is clogged, so I'm just going to get a little bowl and pour some out. And I do this with my Glimmer Mist also because my sprayers never last very long, or my Raindrops product, which is my own homemade Glimmer Mist. So I'm just going to take that refresher and paint that on. And you can see how it kind of loosens up the ink a little bit. So that's why I said don't worry about those lines, because they really don't show up in the end. And if some do, it's okay. It kind of adds to that suede look. So I'm just going to paint this on and get it pretty wet. Now if you stamp the other side, you would at this point flip that over and you would do this side as well. And I'm going to go ahead and do it even though it's not inked up, just to show you. So you get that some ink does come off, and that's okay. And then you're just going to wrinkle this puppy up. So I'm just going to tightly, now I could probably have wet this a little bit more, but you're going to do a nice tight ball. And then you're going to start to undo it. Now this is my side with my color. And you're going to repeat this process probably 3 times till you get kind of the look that you want. And I'm going to go back in with more color. Again, I'm just going to do parts of it. This is the walnut stain color. And now I'm going to do my old paper. I hope I'm getting that right. Then again, go back over with the perfect ink refresher. Now the reason you're doing this with the ink refresher again and not water, and you could do this with water, but I like the look of the ink refresher because it does leave a kind of smooth suede look. It's not greasy. It tends to feel a little bit oily in the hands, but it's not really greasy. It's just more, I don't know, it just gives it a slicker finish. Now you want to be careful to not saturate this too much that the paper starts falling apart, which is why you have to do this with poster paper and not regular cardstock. And again, you could do the other side. And probably twice would be all I dare to do. Now you can hit this with your embossing gun, you know, just to kind of, or you can let this air dry. It will dry kind of stiff. So you want to flatten it out as much as you need before you actually complete this process. And while those pieces are drying, you are going to take whatever measurement your triangle ends up being, the top point to the bottom point, you want to measure that side, and you're going to cut a 2 by whatever that measurement is right there in, again, poster board. So this is more poster board, and you would repeat the same process on this piece. And that's just so, let me grab my teepee here, so that when you join the seams, like I did here, it blends in. It's really hard to tell that that's a separate piece. Now and the process for joining that is you'll take both triangles, and I use score tape. You can also use this terrifically tacky tape, and you would run it to the inside edge. You would have scored this piece. Now I'm just going to rough fold it here, but you would have scored it exactly in half, okay? And I would run this tape along the very folded edge here, the peak, and then along this bottom edge as well. And then I would stick this down, and again, it's going to be as long as the entire edge down to this piece. Now you can also do it this way. I know it's going to be harder to see, but with this folded, you're going to line that up against the edge. And the reason you do that is because, like I said, mine was flush, so I didn't want that to show at all. Once you've adhered that to that end, you're going to flip it over, and the next triangle piece would go right over top of here. So I've got another piece here that's already dry, so I would stick that right to there. And what you've created, so you take those triangles that you've inked in Distress, and you can kind of feel how this feels really stiff and hard. It is. This stuff, once you dry it and let it, you can either let it air dry or, like I said, use your heat gun, but you will let it completely dry, and it does stiffen up. It's a good sturdy piece. So you can, you know, if you were using this on your dresser, your little boy's dresser, you can dust this. You do it to all 3 pieces. On the 3rd piece, this opening, what I did was cut the triangle in half first, and then I created the sides. And then on this side, you can see that I folded this over, and I just used a glue dot to adhere it. On this side, because I wanted an off kind of asymmetrical angle here, what I did was I cut the piece off and then attached it, and I'm going to show you here, to the back side. Piece off, glued it to the inside of this edge, and then curved it around like that. Okay, so the curve kind of makes that edge disappear, and that's how I got the asymmetrical look for the tent. To cut some embossing material to do the stencil here on the side, and you could do bear paws, you could do, you know, deer or elk or whatever you think would look good on the side. It can show you how I created this buffalo with some Cricut cuttables. Okay, so this is the product I'm talking about. It is adhesive backed stencil material. These products that Cricut sells to go in your machine that are called Cricut cuttables, that's what it says here in this purple band, basically just means anything besides paper that your Cricut can cut. So the stencil material is part of that. It comes in a tube like this. It's 12 by 24, so you just get one piece that would fit on your large mat. You can cut it apart, which is what I did for the shape, and it has kind of a dull side and a shiny side. And you can see the buffalo there that I've started to cut. You want to put this on your machine with the shiny side down and the dull side up. I have a set of tips for working with cuttables, so if you want to visit my website and click on the tab that says Cricut Tips, you'll see a set of 4 tips that work for any cuttable that you use in your machine. Okay, so you want to follow those. Now I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this. I haven't mastered my camera in this glare yet. Okay, so on this video we're going to do a couple things with the gypsy. I'm going to show you how to find the buffalo first of all. So on the mat I'm going to add a second layer, which I've done already here at the top, as you can see. So I'm going to be on the layer that I've added the buffaloes, and, well, buffalo. I'm going to go over to my cartridge. Now I'm going to show you how to do a search real quick. So the little Cricut face here with the monocle is how you will do a search. You'll have another screen come up and you'll see the word keyword there at the top. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is find our actual Cricut shape that we're going to need to use. So we're going to go to the cartridge section here, and we are going to click on the little Cricut face with the monocle. And I'm sorry about the glare, but up here at the top it says keyword, and instead of trying to type anything in there, we're going to click on this little tab over here that looks like a keypad, and then you're going to type in the word that you're searching for. So we're going to look for a buffalo and see what comes up. Now there are 3 options here. We're going to choose the very first option, which is buffalo alone. The other ones were phrases with the word buffalo, and you have 2 options. You have birthday bash and my world. Now what I like about the search results is that you get a little icon there of what the image looks like, so you have a better idea of what you're going to pick. I like the authentic buffalo in my world. So when I click on that, it brings up that actual buffalo, and you can see everything else is in a darker shade except for the buffalo that they're pointing to. And so I'm going to go ahead and select that. Once it puts it up here on the image queue, I'm going to toggle back to my mat, and I'm going to put it up in this corner where I want to cut it. And then I'm going to begin sizing it. Now because it is so tiny, I'm going to zoom in, and let's just zoom in twice. Okay, so there's the buffalo on my mat. Okay, so there's my image, and the squares on here are 1-inch squares. So I'm going to measure the side of my teepee depending on what size you've created, and I'm going to select a size that will work. So I'm just going to stretch it with the stretch ball right here. Oops, make sure that's highlighted, and then I'm going to stretch it to the size I need. Now I actually measured mine, and I found out that, and I'm going to unzoom here, I found out that I needed to make it 3 inches by 1 inch and something high. So here's my actual buffalo that I've sized, and if you want the same size that I created, this is width is 2.86. Whoops, excuse me, 3.42 on the width and 2.15 on the height. Now, if you just change one of these by clicking on it, you get the little number keypad where you can enter in an exact number, or you can use your double up, double down, single up, or single down arrows to make that whatever height you want. Because proportionality always works in the Gypsy and with Cricut, if you have this little gold link on, it will automatically change the other side of the equation. So if you change the width, the height automatically adjusts to keep that image looking proportionate. If you adjust the height, then the width automatically changes. When you know you want to make an image that is an odd width and height, then you will take that link off and change those numbers separately. Okay, so once you cut the material, you wind up with a piece that looks like this. It actually comes on some backing paper that you peel off. Basically what I do is tuck that in where it belongs by lining it up on the top piece. This is the image that you will be left with. Now you'll notice I have a little piece right here. It's going to be hard to see. That little piece right there is actually, if you were going to use the image, it's the piece that comes out right there to give it a little bit more detail. So what I did is I removed this portion. Let's see if I can back out here. Okay, I removed this portion of the stencil image, set that aside for a minute. I left the inside piece, and then I took some Copic markers, and the reason Copics work is because these are alcohol based and can color plastic quite easily. And I just took my wide edge, and I know that this stuff curls up, so you're just going to have to be careful with that. I put the main image there, I took my Copic markers, and I just started doing some random coloring. Copics can be blended, so if you want to, do some really serious coloring and blend the colors, you can certainly do that. I didn't take too much time to do that. I just did some really basic coloring. I also went back in with some black Sharpie right there and added the details, and I'm going to actually place this little image once that ink dries as my own made embellishment. So I'm going to use all parts of this material, and none of it's going to go to waste. So I'm going to set that aside for a minute, but the reason that I colored it in the first place is because this piece here is self-stick when you place it on the teepee, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right here. You'll notice that little insert piece is missing. It does cut out, but you have to place it where it would belong. The best way to know where to place that is to take this image and lay it over top of the stencil. You can see there, and if it's colored it makes it easier to see, and then you can tuck in the little, and now my fingers are going to, so once it's in the correct position, that will stick down and this will stick down. Now because you've inked and made this bumpy, it's not a real great stick, so you are going to want to just kind of press it down, and you can see that little piece loses its stick really easily. So once you've got that stuck down, you can use your Copic markers, you can use the distress ink again, you can dry brush, whatever your favorite technique is for putting this little stencil on. There are stencil paints. What I wanted to do was use my Tim Holtz Ink Essentials tool, and I happen to have some Adirondack alcohol ink. Again, this is in the mushroom color. So all I did is, and I practiced first on a piece of paper, which is what this is. I wanted to see how much of the color would soak in, how much bleed there might be, so you can practice on a piece of paper. This is a scrap piece of poster, so I knew how much of the ink would absorb. That was a little dark for me, so what I wanted to do is, after I put a couple of drops on this pad, and that just pours over the top, I'm going to wipe some of it away on my background image. You see how deep that is? So I'm going to get that kind of off a little bit, and then with what's left, I'm going to go in and sponge that buffalo in. And you can see that when you wipe some of it off, you don't leave much behind, and that's what I was hoping for. I do not want to leave a whole bunch of ink behind. I just want it to look kind of dry. A little bit more there. Now you're also able to do two colors with this technique if you want, especially with these Adirondacks. And I went back in with a little bit of this fixative gold color, and you don't need very much of this. I just did a little drop in the center, and I'm also again going to just blend that in. Now another thing I did for the teepee that I created that I showed you a minute ago is I did take my Copic marker, and just to make sure I could control the bleed, and I'm sorry my hand's in the way, but you just outline the buffalo in the Copic. Because this is also alcohol ink,
it sort of defines the image a little bit better. And when you go in with the blending tool, and I'll move my hand here in a second, you can see that the alcohols just blend together. Now my little piece moved again. Okay. And you can give it as much texture and dimension as you want by different sponging. And I did take, on the teepee that I showed you, I did take my Copic markers and I just free-handed some grass on there. You could Cricut cut this, but because Native Americans did paint right on their tents with, you know, the colors that they found in nature by smashing up berries and creating their own dyes, I wanted it to look more like that. Okay, so here's the mini album. There are a lot of Cricut die cuts in this. It's all mainly from the Disney Classics font, and that's what I did here to the cover. The little red frame in the background that I did the white gel pen stitching on is actually from Accent Essentials, and I did the shadow piece so that there was no frame around it. Now I will warn you that this particular piece, no matter what kind of paper I cut it on, was extremely difficult to cut, especially at the size that I did it. These shapes are all under 4 inches or under, and so when you're doing them this little, you do run the risk of having some really tight cuts. There was a lot of paper fuzz, which is why I went back in here and lined it in black. These little letters here were so tiny that I did have to paint in with my white gel pen some of the lines just to finish the image off. So there was some touch-up work done to this to get the image to come out how I wanted it. Of course, that's solved when you make a much bigger shape, but this album happens to be 6 by 5, and I'll show you how I created that in a second. But first I wanted to kind of just walk you through. I did just do a simple ribbon closure on this, so you can just pull that open. This is all just made out of pattern paper. There's very little cardstock actually in this. It's mostly in the matting, like you see back here. This brown is some brown basil. And this paper collection is actually this campfire. Now, this image right here is the Peter Pan that's flying, and what I did in order to make him not affect my mat back here, the picture mat, is I did add this little strip across here on top of the page so that I could tuck the picture all the way in there if I needed to, and he would be flying across the page. Then I added some clouds up here, and then this sticker set, The Great Outdoors, actually came from this paper line that's by October Afternoon. So there's my first layout with my Peter Pan there, and I have room for 2 pictures. Now I did say on the blog that you could put 40 pictures in this album, and I'm going to show you how. Each one of these pages is also a pocket. So inside each one of these is tucked in another, and I didn't decorate these up. I probably won't, because these will just be mats for pictures. So I'm going to have a picture here, 2 pictures in here, and then you can also put another picture there, or you can just leave some journaling in here. And if you've followed my blog for a while now, you'll know that I've had to come up with new and inventive ways to hide my journaling, especially for my boys, because they don't want anyone to see the icky, mushy stuff. So I do a lot of hidden journaling. They like showing off their pictures to their friends, and now that I've got an 18 and a 20-year-old, it's their girlfriends, but they don't want them to see the icky, mushy stuff that Mom always has to add. So that's why I created this hidden pocket, and each page has a coordinating piece that goes in there. Now I'll probably put a tab so that they're easier to pull out, but for now I just wanted them to slide in there. The next page is pretty simple. This is a Pooh and Friends font, and I just did Playtime, the little bird and the star, again from that sticker line, and I made these pockets. So you could actually put a picture there and a picture on each side, or again some more journaling. So there's room for 3 more pictures on each page here. And you can keep count if you'd like, but I promise you I did the counting, and there's room for 40. Again, this is a pocket that opens up, so more room for pictures in there, 4 per slide out tab here. Now on this page, Peter Pan is again off the page enough that you can slide in your picture, And again, the teepee on this side is also so that I can slide in a picture. So you can fit, so 2 more pictures there, and again, here's the pocket. On this page, of course, that ribbon goes across there, but you can tuck the picture in, and I will probably put a picture in slanted here so that you can still see the skull and crossbones that I stamped on there. I also stamped the word treasure here. I promised on the blog that I would show the fun thing with this treasure chest, and it's that it's a pull-out. So in the little bottom half here, it says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So you could put a picture there, or again, the yucky, mushy stuff. You can tuck this back in, and there, you could also put another picture right there. So there's room for 1, 2, 3, 4 spots for pictures and or journaling. And if you don't have a stamp saying you want there, again, yeah, it could be some private journaling. These gold coins I really love. I've used them a lot. They came on some trim that I found at Joann's, and I really love it. This lock and key set, these were Brad's by Making Memories, and I just cut the shanks off so that that could just be a free-floating key. And this I just glue dotted into place rather than use the brad to poke through, because I didn't want it to affect the little slide out. And again, the pocket back here for 4 more pictures. Now on this side, this was the page with Mr. Snee. He was so cute. Don't you just love that belly? I would never, there is room to tuck behind Mr. Snee for 2 pictures here. And I hand wrote on the side, I will never grow up. Though I wrote, I will never grow up there. These pages open up. So even though they will lay flat like this, and that's the way the layout was meant to look, these are hidden flaps, and then again you can put 2 more pictures there. Now I didn't, so 2 more pictures on each side plus the 2 in front on that page. The pocket page is here, and then this is probably my favorite 2 pages. So on this side, Captain Hook, and this is obviously another pull-out, and you can put a picture there, picture there, picture there. So another 3 right here. This one is super fun. Now the tip on this little sailboat here on the cartridge, this was one of the icon buttons. It did not have any layering. So when you cut this out, it cuts as 1 piece in whatever color you cut it out. I cut it out twice in black and then in white, and then I created my own paper pieces or my own layer so that this would have more than just that flat look. I also added some bling. I did some gel pen outlining, and then I just hand drew in those birds flying over the ocean. Why I love this page is this is also a pull-out. So I did 2 tabs here to create 2 separate pockets. So this you can put some journaling on. Obviously you wouldn't want to put pictures on that, and that tucks back into this first layer, and then this also opens up. So you can have 2 more pictures, or again journaling, and I also put some pattern paper on the back so I could do 1 more picture. And you can tuck this in behind here however you like. You can have the anchor showing, and that's a stamp from Rusty Pickle, or you can have that tucked in back there and have that over. But however you'd like that to fit, it works lots of ways. So that's another pull-out. And again, you could always put a picture back there. So there is really a lot of real estate in this little mini. That's the mini album. Now I just wanted to show you real quick how I created the pages for this so that you could have all of those really neat pockets. You can see that that album is not very thick. The ribbon is enough to keep it shut, and this is all paper and not cardstock. So about 40, well, yeah, 40 pictures will fit on here between all of the mats and the pullouts, and it's not that bulky, so it will slide right inside the teepee. So here is a paper. Now I used some old paper from my stash for the actual book itself, and then I used the new October Afternoon paper for the inside. This paper, the album is 6 by 5, so the first thing I did was cut 6 inches of this, and this is double-sided cardstock, which is really nice for the pocket pages. And because it's 6 by 5 folded, it's 6 by 10 this way. Now if you want have your bone folder, which I didn't grab, we're going to pretend I scored that at 5 inches. You're just going to fold that in half, And I'm going to quickly do the other piece as well. So you're going to want to do both of these just like this. What I did, because I knew I wanted to cover the pages with pattern paper, is I wanted the colored pages on the inside and the pattern to the outside. So I folded it in this way. Once you have those two pages, you're going to use your double stick tape, your ATG gun, or your wet glue of some sort, and you're going to glue this on 3 edges. So with that on 3 sides, I'm just going to remove the orange. And if you have all your edges your same, and you're just going to keep putting, and I'll show you the finished book here, you're just going to keep putting edge to edge to edge. Now I did one to the edge. There's when you get to the backing, then I just took a piece of cardstock pattern paper, the coordinating paper, and I just wrapped it around that edge right there to create this book look. Now before I glued it down, of course, slipped the ribbon through there so I would have a way to tie that book together. I hope that you'll try the teepee or the Disney cartridge. I had a lot of fun on this Disney blog hop, and I so appreciate all of the wonderful comments and the new followers. It was just an incredible hop, and I can't believe so many of you had such wonderful things to say about my project. I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. I'll have to keep trying to come up with new and creative things to keep you interested in my site. Thanks so much for stopping by. Bye-bye.